Hi, Margot.
Hi, Peter.
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back.
That's okay. Hello, Troy.
Hey, Peter.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
Good. So appreciate you coming in for the first meeting of the Woke Bitcoin Council.
We need T-shirts.
People are going to take that seriously this moment, and they're going to be fucking fuming.
It's okay. It's nothing new.
They're going to be fuming, and they're going to be tapping.
Not only are they woke, it's also a council.
It's a council.
Who appointed them?
Foundation.
Yes. It's the new world order. We can make this worse and worse.
So we were talking about Danny's stalker, Derek.
Shout out Derek S.
Oh, yeah.
I still think it's my brother.
I think it's Andrew Bailey.
Do you? You think it's Andrew Bailey?
That's
well,
cute.
he posts it more than anyone.
I think it's my brother. I just don't think he would do. Do you know about Danny Stalker? This guy comes on YouTube every show and says the weirdest stuff.
Yeah, maybe.
So you got a stalker?
A little bit. Yes.
A little bit.
I'd rather not say anything because it's too...
Oh, is this
scary.
This is the screenshot you sent me?
Yeah.
This is a real stalker.
Good Lord. This is real. This is not Derek S. material.
Actual stalker.
Yeah, on Twitter.
Wow. Yeah, it's easy to forget how creepy guys can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just super creepy.
It's not just a guy who likes you.
It can be very graphic, like explicit comment, like very sexually explicit comments about me, and also sometimes about you, Troy, and sometimes about Andrew Bailey as well. Speaking of Andrew.
Is it Derek S?
Derek has got a very distinctive style, and he's only into Danny.
Is he? Is this dude into some kind of woke Bitcoin group sex thing?
No,
it's just her.
No, he. I don't know. I can even say this.
You can't.
You can say it.
We're enabling him.
Everybody wants to hear it.
It's actual harassment. Like it's way over any line for. Like I would take out a restraining order.
But have you not blocked them?
No, I have not blocked them because I don't want them to, flip out and do something crazy. So I just try to be nice.
Okay.
But they don't like your penis choice.
They don't like your penis?
What? How did this get into the conversation?
God damn it, Margot. I really hate Troy's penis.
Yeah, I don't bring these things up. But
I also don't like Troy's penis. I'm just going to do that as well. Well, I think you win the Stalker Wars.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll take that trophy now. Thanks.
Well, anyway, welcome back to What Bitcoin Did. We loved having you on the show last time. It's good to see you again. Good to pair you up here with Troy.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm going to say this with warnings for the triggered people, but I'm enjoying this growth of this collective of what do you say, liberal Bitcoiners, progressive Bitcoiners. I think it's a really good thing. I love that Jason's got his book out there now. It's done very well. I love this separate community is building up. That it feels to me like it's a community of people who are still rejecting a lot of what's coming from the state, but more from the left side of the political spectrum. I think it's a good thing. I think it's good for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's a subset of progressives that are attracted to Bitcoin in this way. I don't think all progressives are, that like opposed to the state or aspects of what the government is doing. I think it used to be part of that, in the last 10 years, there was more concern around privacy and surveillance on the left, internet freedoms, and a lot of that has been lost, I think, amongst the progressive consciousness. So I feel like these people are the ones that remember Occupy Wall Street and remember what the recession was about and lived through that and are still angry about it.
Yeah, I feel like, unfortunately, over the last handful of years, there has been a new subset group who they're angry about stuff, and they felt their way of dealing with that is shouting down and silencing people, canceling people, rather than debating it through and talking it through. I don't consider them real progressives. I don't even know what I consider them, but they need defeating, and their weapons of debate need defeating because they're stopping debate. And it's not very useful, and I think it's scarred the left quite badly over the last few years.
Yeah, I don't identify with the left anymore at all. I'm not comfortable with the label liberal. I'm not comfortable with the label progressive. I think I was at one point, but I don't know. Maybe it's partly Bitcoin's influence, but I think mostly it's not. It's mostly about living inside of that movement and feeling like, wait a minute, this isn't who I am or what I believe in.
Yeah.
So while you're identifying a movement inside of Bitcoin, and you're using this term, which we ourselves use, like progressive Bitcoiners, I think a lot of us who are friends and feel the same way about Bitcoin have a range of feelings, but some of them share my sentiments about where the mainstream left is now. And don't identify with it any longer. So there isn't really a good term for us. We're like Bitcoiners who have share kind of classical values with what used to be termed the political left, something like that, or concerns. Our goals, our ambitions are similar, but just don't culturally or for various reasons kind of identify what's going on with the movement now.
Yeah. And I would say too that I think even within the progressive movement itself, there is a little bit of an identity crisis, because I had this conversation several months ago with a friend who is the executive director of one of the biggest progressive democratic organizations in the country. And he was saying that he was worried that the progressive movement was going to fall apart. And I think that this has probably already happened. I think that there's a lot of, just like different groups splintering off, a lack of cohesiveness around where the progressive movement wants to go, what it stands for. And I think part of it is that there really was a de facto leader, which was Bernie Sanders. And Bernie has now really become very well integrated with the establishment Democratic Party and is not really showing that leadership anymore. He immediately endorsed Joe Biden for re-election, and the progressives in the House, like AOC, the Squad, right, they've also fully integrated into the Democratic Party and are going along with that overall messaging, even though every now and then you hear them push back a little bit. And I think that loss of leadership has left the progressive movement a bit disoriented, and these splintering off are happening. And so some of them are moving towards this, what you were describing, like a more authoritarian direction of silencing opponents, of this, top down, we have to do things, you have to fall in line in a certain way. And if you don't agree with us, you're the enemy. And then there's others who deep down sense that that is not the right direction. And I think those are the people who are really feeling lost. And it's not just like lost in terms of like, do you have like a home in a different particular group? And I think the Bitcoiners who came out of that movement are like us. And I feel it too, like, oh, I don't really, identify with the direction this is going. And those are people also like Matt Taibbi, who was like a darling of the left for a long time as an investigative journalist. Others like Katie Halper, who is associated with him. And I think, these were people who were always critical of the Democratic Party, and that was really popular. It was okay to be critical. And since I think the pandemic, it's become very strongly, the feeling is very strong that you can't be as critical as you used to be. So I think it's not just us in the Bitcoin space who are feeling this detachment or loss of, am I part of the progressives anymore? But I think even outside of that, there is this thing happening, this shift happening. And it's also, on the right as well, there's an authoritarian shift in a different direction, and these populist movements. So yeah, we're just like one part, one representation of all the stuff that's happening, especially in the US.
Well, there's two points I would raise on that. The first one being, I think there's just a political trap.
Mm-hmm.
And I can imagine, not knowing how the corridors of DC work, but to get anything done, you have to fall in line with your party. And so Bernie probably could have become president. I disagree with a lot of his policies. I think he is a bit too socialist, but at the same time, I don't dislike him. It's the DNC didn't give him the nod when he was probably the better candidate over Hillary Clinton.
Hmm.
And so what does he do? Fight them and get nothing done, or fall in line and get things done? And then I think the other point is, Trump threw a massive hand grenade into politics, and I felt probably a lot of people, just for fear of him being reelected, again fell in line. But I think that's just a trap of politics. I identify these left and right positions, but I think what's really good in Bitcoin is that actually there's a lot of cohesion, whether you're historically left or right. If you're a Bitcoiner, we're sat here, but we could equally have somebody who's maybe more from the right, and we'd all have a great conversation, maybe disagree on certain points, but we have an anchor to work together on outside of politics. Outside of that, in the political world, whatever the topic is, it's like, okay, the left think this, the right think this, and we're going to fight on it. I don't see, well, the only thing I've actually seen some kind of bipartisan support is actually against what we do, which is ironically.
Totally.
Yeah, so they've come together to fight us,
Yeah.
and I think people have come together to fight them, and
Yeah.
I see that as a positive.
Yeah, I think a positive is that I'm just less political than I was. Like, I don't think in terms of politics anymore. I mean, when I denied those labels, it's not because I've shifted on the political spectrum. It's because I guess I think politics is less relevant to my life, and I see it less in a less hopeful light. I mean, I've been burned by politicians my entire life, so I wasn't exactly hopeful to begin with. But it's kind of like, okay, you're going to do your thing. The machine's going to operate. I'm busy building something else. I'm working on something else, a different system that's better, and it'll keep you in line. So, you know what I mean? Bitcoin gives you a way to act in the world, influence reality. That it's apart from the political channel. If you think about young people who are frustrated, like Occupy Wall Street, what can you do? Go out and hold a sign and say, the system sucks, it's unfair. And then you have talks about what you should do next, and those talks don't go anywhere. Bitcoin is a real thing that has real influence in the world. And it's real because we're getting pushback.
Yeah.
Right? We're getting fought in a way that these fringe youth groups, that the protest groups, they just get pushed to over a few blocks from the banks that they're protesting, or the meeting of world leaders or whatever. You know what I mean? The riot police just kind of shove them over into the corner. Life goes on like it never existed. It never happened. I mean, what came out of Occupy Wall Street? Like what actually came of it? Do we change any systems for real? No. So Bitcoin is kind of like, that's because they were trying a political action. And I'm not saying political action never succeeds. I mean, it obviously does, and we have lots of examples of that, Gandhi. but it's not. Bitcoin is something. It's something different. It's an opt-in system you can invite other people into. You can disempower the corrupt political system rather than entering as a player and pretending that you have influence when you don't really. So it just feels more honest as a way to engage the world.
Bitcoin is a political act, though. So you're just not engaging in the political system, but you are being political by deciding to use Bitcoin, build on Bitcoin, create economies around Bitcoin, mine Bitcoin. Like, I think all of that is a political act, and it's an act of defiance. It's a political statement, and you are voting with your money in a way. So
it's a bloodless revolution.
It's just a different way of getting your politics out there.
One of the tricks of politics, I've been sucked into it and burned by it recently and in the past. And but one of the tricks of politics is that when you pick a side, you're part of the bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy is an animal that continues to grow. It continues to steal. It continues to oppress. It only gets worse as it gets too big. It's that old economic model of diseconomies of scale. It just gets too big, so it can't operate well. But what we don't have is, we have that push left to right that this thing grows. We don't have big to small push, but the big to small push is actually the libertarians and the Bitcoiners. The Bitcoin thing is that, okay, this is a way, we're never going to change it within it, but outside of it, you can hopefully do the thing that gives you, that kind of shrinks it again. That's my hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, we're done. All right, let's
Yeah,
go.
I agree.
Good show, man.
Shrink the state as much as possible. Crush it.
And I always, we talking left and right in terms of trying to appeal to people, and we majored over the last year on left wing people, progressive liberals, whatever character.
Fun to watch.
And we did it for the reason is that we didn't want Bitcoin to be something that was only understood by the right. I think it's really important, and I think it's taken a little bit longer for people from the left to understand it, but you notice they have, and then they come into Bitcoin and maybe they do what you do. They're like, well, fuck the politics, but I'm here for the Bitcoin. And so I think that's a really good thing. And now it's like, let's bring everyone together. Let's get Jason Meyer sat down with Ted Cruz.
Very funny.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Washington calcifies. I know it is pretty tribal there. We were at the Bitcoin Policy Summit, whatever was that, a couple weeks ago?
Yeah. In the April 25th, I think it was.
How was it?
Oh, it was amazing. Amazing event. And so props to David, Zell, and Grant for putting together really a first of its kind event just on Bitcoin and why it matters, and with a range of policy people there, staffers, people from the agencies, people from the bureaucracy, and lawmakers. So, it's just what needed to happen is like a serious conversation, which was really just about Bitcoin with the DC establishment. It was terrific, but it's hard not to notice, even though like Biden's campaign manager was there, but the politicians who were there were, it was Tom Emmer, it was
Cynthia Lummis,
Ted Cruz.
The ones we already have.
The Republicans. There was former Congressman Tim Ryan.
Tim Ryan was
from
there.
The Democratic
That's
Party.
right. Tim Ryan was there.
He's part of the new Bitcoin Policy Institute Action.
That's right.
Group.
So we did have representation, but it's like Bitcoin Policy Institute, I feel like, is fighting hard to not let it be captured and completely politicized, but they're fighting a really difficult battle because, when Elizabeth Warren is raising an anti-crypto army, then it's very hard for her colleagues to push back and say, actually, this thing might actually be actually helpful for some of our goals. It's naturally aligning left, right, and our hope is kind of that we keep it neutral, or not neutral, but really multifaceted in its appeal, and that the people who go extremely hard against it will overextend themselves and then extend beyond where the population is, and extend beyond where their members of their parties are, and where the state government is, right? And because they're out there. But if I had to bet on it, I would say we fail and it becomes completely politicized. Just because you don't bet against the culture war, it swallows everything, right? We're going to do what we're going to do, try to fight it. You can see the reality is that Bitcoin does not align with the current culture war in any particular way at all. It's so much, I think, bigger than that.
There isn't a natural fit in the culture war because it's money. But what I have seen is that I think I can see where it will, because we see what DeSantis has done in Florida with regards to CBDCs. What was the law didn't they put a law in this, like,
they said
outlaw
they
it?
wouldn't accept CBDCs within Florida.
Yeah. Which I don't know what happens if the federal government decide to do one, what that challenge is. But I could see a scenario where multiple states push back on this. I mean, Texas would be another obvious one.
Yeah.
Wyoming. I think they understand and see the dangers of it. Whereas I could then see maybe more from the left, they would see no, they would want to argue for CBDCs in that, this is a better way to, distribute money to the poor, some kind of bullshit around that, some kind of lie. And then, as a rejection of CBDCs, the red states maybe say, no, what we need is Bitcoin. This is what we should be doing. So I could see it becoming that fight over, because it's such a fight. Like it's the desire to win the election has become more important than the desire to serve the electorate.
There is like a progressive economic backing to that idea, I would say, because Yanis Varoufakis, who is an economist and was part of, I think Syriza was the party in Greece, and he is supporting CBDCs, and he legitimately thinks that they can handle the privacy concerns. But it's because he believes in a green Keynesian solution to the economic issues, and one that he thinks will solve both the issues around climate change and also the economic issues around income inequality and being able to provide certain, services through government for the majority of people, or, those, like healthcare, education, housing. So I think you're right. I think that there is a political alignment amongst progressives for CBDCs, just seeing how influential Yanis Varoufakis is as the, founder of Progressive International and DM25. And, he's got people in his coalition like Noam Chomsky and Bernie Sanders. So, yeah, I think in that sense, you could definitely see, more Republicans supporting Bitcoin than Democrats, at least on the progressive side, just because there is an economic push towards CBDCs.
It's a shame they don't understand how wrong they are, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I just taught this class on the philosophy of money, and so I can't help but see it in these terms. I mean, the big debate about whether money is a medium of exchange and some real thing like a commodity, like gold or Bitcoin, that really provides an accounting mechanism to facilitate trade, and therefore kind of the ideal money would be money that maximizes the efficiency of exchange. And that sort of comes with a picture of history in which money arises naturally to solve the problem of coincident wants and facilitate trade. So it's this kind of natural thing that exists in the world. Even though all money is a fiction, it behaves as if it's a constraint on human behavior and something that coordinates human behavior. And then the picture of money as debt and as originated and controlled by governments in its essence. And that's something that's a social convention made up by us. It's just debt, like you owe me one. Mm-hmm. One what? And when you say what, you've invented money. And that picture of money as debt and as a mere social convention just leads naturally into MMT, I think. Mm-hmm. Because if it's just a social convention, then let's make it serve social ends. If the government is always responsible for creating money by its very nature, then why not let money serve social ends rather than pretending it's some kind of natural constraint on human behavior? And then once you're in MMT land and you think money is just debt and it's all made up and it's social conventions, then CBDCs seem completely natural as just a simple technological device to do money the best way you can do it, to make the best money. Just use the best technological solution, which would be the people who are responsible for money's existence, the government, and for its supply, should just control its distribution, its exchanges, et cetera, right? So there's a neat package here. And then that package can just get picked up and has been picked up by the left. It's not just, it serves our aims, but it's also, there's an entire philosophical history that rejects neoclassical economics, rejects and then you have up against that, Bitcoin is this resurgent barbaric relic of gold, but now in digital form, and it's like anathema. it's a narrative violation. It must be squashed, right? Because it challenges, it's like, wait a minute, we thought we'd have this figured out. Money is just debt. It's created by governments. What is this medium of exchange commodity thing coming back? That's disgusting. Kill it. Right? But it seems to threaten the powers that people who aspire to fix the world, imagine themselves having. So it sparks a fear response, and I think we're seeing that.
It threatens a lot of things. It threatens control. It threatens power. It threatens narrative. It threatens careers. It's a threat to a lot of things, but it's a really unthreatening thing that you can just leave alone.
But you'll stay poor.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that.
I think its main issue is I think Bitcoin has an image problem. Yeah. Full transparency, when people are like, what do you do? I have a podcast. They're like, what's it about? I was like, it's Bitcoin. Like, I sometimes feel a bit embarrassed not because I'm embarrassed about what I do. I know what they're going to think. Okay.
Yeah.
You're one of those guys.
We both experience this all the time.
In daily life.
Yeah, so I end up telling us
hide all my Bitcoin stickers in my apartment when people come over.
I end up telling a story. It's like, so I try and like reverse engineer. I say, it's an economics podcast, but I look at the economics, human rights, and politics through the lens of a fixed limit currency. And then, what do you mean? I was like, well, there's this like fixed limit digital currency, and that's really important. Like the most important part of it is that it's a fixed limit because the government's printing money and that's causing inflation. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that. I was like, yeah, it's the government printing money because they just can. Like if you had a money printer in your bedroom, you could just print, would you? I was like, yeah. I was like, well, that's what the government does. But that essentially leads to theft from us. And this thing's called Bitcoin.
No wonder we don't have more listeners. Yeah. That's how you're selling it.
Well, it's the age-old debate. It's like, there'll become a time. It doesn't. I don't know if it's next week, next year, but we will rename the show and we'll take Bitcoin out of it because we want to create Bitcoiners, and we think we're serving Bitcoiners. We want to serve future Bitcoiners, and so
absolutely
taking it out and talking about interesting subjects and just mentioning Bitcoin occasionally might get people interested. The same reason people harass Joe Rogan. When are you going to have Saylor on Rogan? Because they really want a bunch of people orange pilled.
Right.
I mean, I think you're cringing for a good reason. That's your spidey sense telling you you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to create like a defensive reaction if you lead with Bitcoin. And why is that? Well, it's complicated, but it's the world we live in right now. I mean, that is the reality. It's the same for the energy space.
Yeah.
Right? How many of these companies that Margot and I talk to are like, yeah, we do flexible load. We bring the load to the generation. It's flexible compute. I don't know if you saw the Crusoe ESG report recently.
No.
But like they mention Bitcoin, but it's mostly just flexible data centers, and then Bitcoin is just sort of slides in there, and that's how they got it through the World Economic Forum, right? Which featured Crusoe as this technological kind of breakthrough for climate.
Look what data centers are doing for the planet.
So it's like across it's not just you in this field. It's me in philosophy of money. I mentioned Bitcoin just like it was like the last part of my course. Of course, it was the driving telos of the course. It was the end, but it's throughout. We know in order to speak to a broad audience, we have to hide the ball a bit. And we shouldn't have to, right? I mean, we shouldn't. Like, that's bizarre that we do. But it's the world we live in.
Well, and again, I think there's multiple reasons for that. I think, firstly, some people are like, yeah, well, I heard about this like 5 years ago. I didn't buy any, and now I'm pissed off, so fuck your Bitcoin.
Yeah, right.
Or they've seen some bullshit from the likes of DeFreeze or whoever, some FUD. They've been convinced that we're melting polar bears.
That's the one I face.
Yeah, and there's just all these different narratives, and it's like it's so boring. It's so boring.
It's so great to hear Troy give this advice now, but the advice that Troy gave me last year was the exact opposite.
Which was?
Oh, well, Troy told me to It's not all Troy's fault.
Yeah, we had
Troy's
a lot of conversations about this.
Yeah. Oh, it was the
Pin this on me now.
No, it wasn't Troy's fault. No, I wrote a thesis proposal around Bitcoin, and then there was a section about why me. And I was talking with Troy about this. He was like, yeah, just tell him everything you're doing so he knows that you can do this. And so I was like, yeah, okay, type. All the things. I've been around the world. I've been on podcasts. I've written all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then that did not go well with my advisor. He hated it. Yeah. He said I could not do anything, no Bitcoin. I could only do what I was working on with him. And
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
I don't know, but he said absolutely not. Yeah, I don't know. It made him really angry.
Bitcoin does make some people angry.
It made him really angry. And then he took my funding away.
Who the fuck is this guy?
Can I say, first of all, there are two people sitting in this chair.
Mm-hmm.
The one is Margot. The other is Jin Urso.
Oh, yeah, on Twitter.
Okay. But you are both of these people.
Yeah, I'm
one of
both.
them is they're just entirely different. It's like you're like a superhero.
Like Eminem and Slim Shady.
Yeah, except I don't know how to rap.
So I was like, the person you're telling me about is Margot is like having some disagreements with her advisor, and she's in this like advisor-advisee relationships are complicated and can often be like this, where it's really like exploitative labor a lot of the times. Like sometimes it can be literally exploitative. And sometimes it's just like in that gray zone. But you're in this subservient position because you depend on your advisor for basically everything. You need a good letter. You need their support for your research. And that's always abused. And so I'm watching Jin Urso just take the Bitcoin world by storm. I think Margot is amazing, an incredible addition to this space, but also working with Margot behind the scenes. And she's meticulous with reviewing literature and critique. I mean, she's just smart, super sharp, super careful, like everything you want in a researcher. Works incredibly hard, writes well, is kind of gifted across the sciences and the humanities, right? I'm like, you're amazing. And the community recognizes it. Margot has like a lot of fans in the UK. Margot has fans.
Actual fans.
And I'm like watching her kind of suffer under the thumb of this abusive advisor, and at the same time I'm watching her flourish and be beloved and fighting really hard against, like, kind of from all sides. Margot takes it from all sides, including this being stalked.
Yeah.
But I'm watching this and it's just frustrating. And my impulse, of course, I was like, do what you want to do, Margot, do what you want to do. But it's hard to watch somebody get exploited who is this kick-ass in real life. And I wish your Jin Urso side or just empowered, and I feel like that didn't go so well because people who are in power don't want to give up that control.
Can't you tell this advisor to go fuck himself and go and do your own thing?
Well, I kind of did in the end. It's kind of what happened, but it was really, really difficult. I mean, I basically was ready to give up everything I was doing in Bitcoin for my advisor because I really wanted my PhD, and I told him at one point, I said, fine, I love this, but I'm going to stop doing it because what we're working on is important and I want to finish this model. And he was like, good. But that was before he told me he was going to take all my funding away. And he lied to me. It's my opinion that he lied to me. My sister's a lawyer. She said, I don't want you to be sued for defamation. So it is my opinion. It's my feeling that he did. That's not a fact. It's just an opinion. And
Craig Wright situation.
So I think that he kind of used me to finish something, to get some funding for the group. And then when I succeeded at that, he didn't really have any use for me anymore. And
he sounds like a dick.
Absolutely. That's my conclusion.
Total dick.
And I was like just trying to find ways to please him, but that wasn't quite working. So in the end, I had to have a meeting with him in the department, and I tried to get him to agree to this contract between advisor and advisee, and he refused, and I said he was lying about something. And he was like, you can't make me be her advisor. And he brought my thesis proposal, the Bitcoin thesis proposal. He brought it to the meeting with him. I was so shocked. Like, what did I do? Like, what did I say in that offended you so much that you literally came to the meeting with this in your folder? And he opened the folder. He had like random papers on one side, and on the other side, he had the Bitcoin proposal in there. And I managed to like put him in a position where he couldn't really make me look bad. And so he never got to it. But yeah, he was like, you can't make me be her advisor, and I want to leave. Goodbye. And that was the end of
So he
my
quit.
research. Yeah. I mean, he quit me.
He quit you.
Basically said, I'm not going to be your advisor anymore.
Sounds like the best scenario.
Yeah.
So then what happened?
So then I went on leave from the university very suddenly because I found out that I didn't have funding on the day that I was expecting for my stipend to be in my bank account. And I went to the finance office and was like, hi, I didn't get paid. I think there was an error. And it turned out, no, he explicitly said he was not supporting you this semester. It was a total shock. And so all of a sudden I had no money. I had, an apartment contract and lease, and it was in Atlanta, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? And I have to go on leave because the university, and there was an error where I thought I had a GRA, and it was somehow I got my tuition had been covered with a tuition waiver, and then it turned out that was an error, and so I was unenrolled from the university automatically overnight once they made the correction and didn't warn me. I lost my health insurance.
She got rugged.
I got
You're
rugged.
rugged.
Massive.
Rugged
It was a massive
hard.
shitcoin experience. I got rugged by my advisor, and so I was like, well, I got to do something. So I've been on leave, and I'm still doing, I'm doing Bitcoin research. I'm like totally focused on that now, which is really great. That makes me really happy. Starting to do some consulting work with definitely with one mining company. I just signed a contract with them, and hopefully we'll be doing more with another company down the line.
You ain't never going back.
And and I got an offer to finish my thesis at the University of Oxford, but that wouldn't be until 2024 because I still have to go through the formal application process.
Oxford, UK.
Yeah.
You didn't get any help from Melton, did you, with that?
No, it was.
I'm sure she
there's
talks
a
there.
No.
secret Bitcoiner.
Yeah.
Climate scientist, secret scientist Bitcoiner.
Say no more, Margot.
Oh, yeah, I can't
Let's
say
not
anymore.
jeopardize this thing.
But we don't know.
A hero. I love this person.
We don't know. I mean, it's all up in the air. There's
There
no
are-
guarantee that this will really happen, but it was nice to get that offer. So,
So
yeah, I can't say.
But is it the funding you need to finish your PhD, or do you need a university as well?
Can
you finish independently?
I can finish it. I could finish it at Georgia Tech. I need an advisor. Although I think if I like just show up to some advisor and be like, look, I've got these 3 papers outlined, I don't really need much help. And if I have my own funding, that's even better.
How much is the funding?
It's like $30,000 a year.
How many more years?
Well, it depends on where I end up, but I would like to say 1 year to finish up, to put this thesis together.
I mean, we'll give you that. Like I said, this is exactly what we said in the last interview. Like,
I know,
like if
back
you need,
to the 30. And I had to stop that because my advisor, I couldn't even do that research I wanted to do because
what's the thesis of the
PhD?
PhD?
You got to tell them about the thesis.
Yeah, what is
Because
the
it's a
thesis?
pretty cool proposal. This thing that was brought to the meeting.
Oh, that one. Yeah. So, well, there were kind of like 2 things to that because I gave this whole sort of philosophical, ecological, economic background to it to build up the story. And so that was all housed framed under ecological economics, and basically asking the question, is Bitcoin a money that works within the realm of ecological economics? And so then from there I built out like the actual thesis question, which was based off of what Gridless is doing on the African continent, like in Kenya and other places, Zambia. And this, trying
That's
to
good.
understand whether monetizing all of this base load is sustainable. And then what does that look like? So like both, sustainable both in terms of the climate side, right? What are the climate impacts, like regional climate impacts on all of those water resources, because it's hydropower and these are mini hydropower plants. And then the other is like, is it monetarily sustainable? Because there's a lot of variables that go into play here in terms of the hash rate, the difficulty adjustment. And the question is, what happens if you do scale this out? Can it handle, increases in difficulty adjustment? Can it handle decreases in price or constant price, or price increases, or, all this other hash rate coming on elsewhere? Can it compete and sustain it over X number of years before you then can connect all of the communities that are there? Because the idea with gridless is that you need a way to monetize this base load until the actual people off-takers, the residents and businesses have refrigerators, have washer and dryers, whatever, and have the connection to the grid. Until that point, you need a buyer, right? So this is a really important question. Like, you have to model the network, and it doesn't just apply to gridless. It can apply to landfills. And that's the other thing I've been doing is I have some preliminary results on this landfill life cycle assessment that I've been doing with Harold Router, which is, can fit into that. And that model can also answer questions around, landfill mining. So so that's kind of the idea of what I had presented, and my advisor hated it.
Can I just stop you? So I think,
Why? Did he give a reason why he hated it?
No. Well, okay. First, which was fair, he said that I kind of added on his model sort of like as an afterthought, which was true. But I told him, I said, look, it doesn't have to be this, but this is the general idea. And so he said that was one reason, but then he never actually did give me reasons why he, in the end.
Margot, you've got to complete this. If you can't get the money, we will give you the money. I've said to you last time, and I stand by that. If you can't get the money, come to us, we'll get you the money. But you've got to do it.
Yeah.
But let's see what's happening with Oxford. If it doesn't work out, come back to us.
Okay. Well, Oxford, I have to apply in the fall. So for now, I'm enrolled for 3 units in the fall at Georgia Tech. I don't have an advisor, but I'm still working on my research in working in the industry. And
does the advisor have to be at Georgia Tech?
I think the handbook says I need 3 people on my committee from the department. So I'm in the civil and environmental engineering department. So I don't know. I have to go back and look and see, do I really need one of those advisors, one of those people, be my advisor and in the department? I don't know. But I have to find somebody. But if I had my own funding, basically, to fund my GRA, then it's a lot easier, because I can just say, look, you just need to supervise me. And I have people I'm collaborating with, and I'm basically know what I'm talking about. And you don't have to take any risk on me, which is, I think,
it's $30,000. That's not hard to get.
Yeah.
We will get you that.
1 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, per year.
We will get you that. You just tell us when you need it, and we will make that happen.
Okay.
But I said this to you a year and a half ago, and you didn't come back to me, which is cool.
Because for one thing, I was trying to make sure the data was there. And there are issues with the data that I need for ERCOT because of the way miners participate. They're not all participating in the demand response program. Some of them are just doing price response, and they're not actually enrolled. So that data is not publicly available. You have to go to each of those mining companies to do that. And we made some progress on that. But then the other thing was that I was really trying to make my advisor happy. So I was trying to focus on my research with him and do the things he asked me to do. And it didn't work out.
It doesn't sound like that should what the role between an advisor and advisee is. It shouldn't be them trying to make you make them happy. It should be them supporting you in delivering your thesis.
You're so naive, Peter.
Yeah, Peter.
I know I'm naive.
I mean,
but that's how I imagine you would be.
Of course,
servitude.
Of course I would, and that's also why I'm very unusual in the academy. I mean, it's a system of ring kissing. It's so fiat. I hate to say that, but it's true. I mean, I don't mean the entire academy. I mean the structure of labor.
It's like a feudal system.
It's a feudal system, right? It's the opposite of a free market, because if you have problems with your advisor, you don't actually have a lot of alternatives. You know, you'll have to kind of convince somebody to work with you, and it's very difficult to switch. And so these stories are not uncommon because of the structure, right? I think what Margot has just described, the project evaluating the gridless model, whether it's sustainable under various price scenarios, whether it's sustainable in the local environment with water resources, like that is a vital research project for humanity.
Of course.
Like we're talking about the potential for tens of millions of people, let's say conservatively, to get electricity who don't have it. And we need to ask the question, like, what would that entail? Is that realistic? And like, we need modelers. I don't have modeling skills. I'm just a philosopher, This is kind of a project we desperately need, and people aren't doing it.
We had Eric Hersman in here yesterday, right?
Yeah. Oh, yesterday.
600 million people, he said, in Africa alone. Something like, what is it? 1.2 billion people don't have electricity worldwide, and he said about 600 million of them is Africa. My numbers might be slightly wrong, but it was something along those lines.
Yeah.
Of course, that is an important project.
Important is an understatement.
The problem is it's the leap from magic internet money to small-scale mining operations connecting to mini grids in Africa to provide electricity by being the last buyer resort. You got to go on a long journey to go from one to the other. And some people just don't want to take that first step. Like there's like a force field at Bitcoin. They're like, I'm not stepping beyond it. It's like every time now somebody says to me, it's like now a good time to buy Bitcoin. I constantly say, no, just go and learn about it. That's all you need to do.
Yeah. Just
go and read a book, go and listen to a podcast, learn about it. You'll figure out the right time. Just go and learn about it. And he obviously didn't want to learn about it. Mm-hmm. Is he like some old fuddy-duddy? Like,
yeah, I've told him. I had told him about it before, and he was like, "Well, what's the point? I can just use Western Union." He is a boomer.
Doesn't want to learn. Some people don't want to learn.
He did kind of say he didn't want to learn.
It's fine. Bitcoin is not for him.
It's not for him, but he can't see that it was unfortunate because he did a lot of work. He has done a lot of work on the African continent, 30 years of work, and it is a missed opportunity for him. And I told him I could bring money. I could find a way through the industry to bring money to fund us because he's excellent and has excellent research skills, an excellent CV. I mean, he would be an excellent asset to what miners are doing on the continent there.
But he isn't, so he's gone.
He's gone.
See you later. Find the next one.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of the big picture is we need studies to help people cross that bridge.
Yeah.
At the base level, we need modeling that shows what the pace of rollout of new generation of electricity is with and without Bitcoin mining, and what the impacts are on the local environment. Like we precisely need that kind of work. And then we need ways to make that work accessible and available to policymakers. I mean, particularly policymakers across Africa, right? But also aid organizations and other people who are working on energy poverty. So I think of it like a stack. I think that the academic work is at the bottom of the stack. That's the most rigorous investigation of the truth that we have. We need rigorous modeling that goes through peer review, et cetera. People don't believe it when it comes from a business. A business says like, we're doing this. Yeah, businesses say a lot of things. And people have been burned by promises, particularly in the crypto world, of we're going to solve X problem with crypto. In Africa, we're going to fix X environmental problem with crypto. And they're so leery of being pitched for raising, right? That if you give them information that's coming from a company, they just discredit it, even if it's real. They're just conditioned to, right? So we need that base layer. On top of that base layer, we've got like things like BPI and then other forms of communication, right? But yeah, I think it's essential. We don't have a lot of people doing it because of the reputational risk that exists around it. And Margot is like one of the very few, but also it kind of reinforces the reputational risk problem, right? You can see why other people aren't working on it when you hear the story.
But the whole way you call it the academy?
Yeah.
Yes, the academy.
Why is it called the Academy?
I don't know. Maybe it's after Plato's Academy. I don't know. It's a good question. I've never thought about it.
But the whole kind of like a higher education institution seems to me, when I talk to you, and I did an interview with Brett Weinstein once about what happened at Evergreen, and I've noted a lot of different things going on, but it's like it seems to be an institution of radicalizing people into doing the opposite of what they should be doing, which is thinking, debating, testing, learning, and delivering an answer. It seems to be now radicalizing people around doing the opposite, not thinking, not challenging, and following a very strict set of incentive models to qualify as morons. That's what it feels like.
And there are smart people.
Very smart people.
Trapped.
But I think the academy, the university system is not designed to make people feel comfortable with dissent. I think that you're specifically chosen and hazed, and tortured because they want people who will put up with so many horrible things just because they want to find a person who isn't going to speak up against things that they don't like. And at least that has been my experience, and that's been very difficult for me because I'm not really good at that.
I am fucking burn it all down. Burn all this shit down.
I think I basically became a scientist because of Carl Sagan. So when you go from thinking science is like this romantic concept that, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of living, it's a way of understanding the world. And then you go to the university, graduate school, and it's not like that. It's a bunch of hoops, and there is science, there is good science happening, but there's this politics that overlays on top and permeates it. And I think that is what makes it, a really difficult environment for a lot of, I think, creative people and
Burn that shit
outside
down.
thinkers.
I disagree. I wouldn't burn it down.
I would. I mean, look, I saw it.
Are you a situationist, Troy?
I saw it with my kids at school. Like, I'll tell you, we got Con here. I'll tell you a little story about him. He was doing drama, and he had to do a monologue, and he found this piece he wanted to do. It was a historical piece, and he was told you couldn't do it because you might offend Black people in the audience because it was from an era of racism. But it was a story talking about the era of racism.
Yeah.
So the monologue reflected the period of the time. It's a piece of art history, and he liked the monologue because there was an actor who had done it. What was his name? Sherman? Huh? Wasn't it? Oh, but anyway, whatever it was and it was almost like these people like, you can't tell this piece of history now because if you do, you're going to tell a story about racism. But it's like, this is real and what happened. Yeah. I turned around to Connor and I was like, just tell him, fuck you, I'm not doing anything then. Like, challenge him. And, and he didn't want to. And I understand why, because you're not taught anymore now to dissent and challenge. And when I was there, we used to have debating classes. We were given that opportunity. It's all gone.
Well, there is still vigorous debate in the academy. Let me just defend the academy and also back up what you're saying in a way. I mean, there's still vigorous debate in the academy. It's within prescribed limits.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And those limits have definitely shrunk. And I think we all recognize where debates like cross a line and become just hateful. At some point, like you have this refrain, which is like, why are you debating my right to exist? And that has certain applications. I don't think we would tolerate a debate on slavery right now, for instance. Mm-hmm. Right? So we all have some line, and that line has just been compressed. And but no, the academy is full of smart people. And let me just make a case for why we need it. We need the academy.
No, but can't you burn it down and rebuild it?
Well, I think that's not going to be easy. I guess if I found myself, there are weird parallels here with other fiat institutions that I feel very comfortable burning down, but this one I'm inside, and so maybe I don't quite want to light it on fire just yet.
But you just got out, man.
But I'm not really
He's got to
out.
go back in.
I'm teaching in the fall.
Once I get out, they pull me back in.
Can't escape.
Totally. But let me just tell a little story here. Economically, how have we gotten to this point? Why do we live in the modern world we live in here? It's because, and even Plato says this and Aristotle says this, we learn to specialize in trade. And this is Adam Smith too. It's the basis of economic development. You don't do everything yourself. You specialize in one thing, you become very good at it, you trade for everything else. Collectively, wealth explodes. I asked one of my econ colleagues a long time ago, like, what are the results in your field? And she was like, well, we have one result that's really solid, and that is that everybody is better off doing the thing they're best at and pretty much nothing else, and trading. And that goes for individuals and it goes for nations, right? And I'm like, well, I see the same thing for knowledge. We don't try to know everything. I mean, I know you kind of do on the show.
No, I don't.
But there's only so deep you can go, right? With each subject. You have subject matter experts come in here, do go deep. And then you talk to them and synthesize and make something out of it. But it's like, that's how we got here. Everybody's specializing and learning something like quantum mechanics, or, how fruit flies reproduce, or how computers work, or how to make chips. Like, imagine trying to do all this shit yourself. It's just freaking impossible. So the method of dividing knowledge and trading for it is the academy. Like that's what the academy does. It's the kind of formalization of that specialty in trading. It's a certification of the kind of expertise that is institutionally given, where you can trust it. It's kind of like the FDA saying we've inspected this food, it's okay, right? It's not just bullshit artists. This is why we have medicine rather than just people passing down like, hey, this worked for me. So the academy is supposed to be this kind of institutionalization of both the production of knowledge. It's a big knowledge factory. You've got a bunch of knowledge workers producing knowledge widgets, which are then stamped with like quality control and traded. And that is a really efficient way for humanity to progress rather than us doing it all on our own. What I see happening with the breakdown of trust, which comes from the politicization of a lot of intellectual life in the academy, that makes people mistrusted who aren't part of that political tribe, or even who are. They don't believe the certification anymore. They think the certification just means like, I approve it for my political purposes rather than I approve it because it's legitimate knowledge. And then they have to do the equivalent of like onshoring. Basically, like, we're deglobalizing in production because we don't trust supply chains anymore, and because we're worried about war breaking out or disruptions from whatever, climate events or whatever, weather events. In the same way, we're like onshoring knowledge epistemically because we're losing faith in these institutions that produced it. And in both cases, you lose massive amounts of efficiency. It's like a step backwards in terms of progress when you go from specializing in trading to having to kind of do everything and inspect everything yourself because you don't have an FDA. So you got to hunt down like the person you trust and ask them, well, what do you think about this? Right? That's the equivalent of making everything in America, or making everything in your backyard. Suddenly we're all survivalists, but on an epistemic level. So these institutions are vital because they allow us to be most efficient with our investigation of the world. Right. And that's how we got here. We wouldn't be living in this world if we didn't have these institutions of trust. And that's why I think, they've got to be reformed. Maybe they have to be burnt down, but I think that's kind of like saying, let's just cut off all trade ties and demolish the institutions of trade and make everything here. Like, that's a radical move.
I think if the reform comes, it comes from the fact that people will just naturally stop going to university. I mean, there is a real big discussion and debate around AI. Lots of new things come along and you jump on the bandwagon and talk about it for a while. But like, AI now is blowing my mind constantly.
It's awesome.
And I look at my daughter, she's a 13-year-old at school, and I'm thinking, the next 5, 6, 7 years of your schooling might be wasted because we're teaching you for a world that won't exist in 7 years. And we should be teaching you for that world. What are the tools and skills she's going to need in 7 years in a world which is dominated by AI and automated systems?
But now you're speaking my love language.
Yeah.
Because I think this is exactly the question. I mean, this is why I love AI, really, because it is forcing us to de-bullshitify education.
Yeah.
Because these are exactly the questions we need to be asking. Well, why weren't we training people all along?
Dude, there was a TED
in the
talk.
way that answers to this question.
There was a TED talk years ago. Sadly, the guy's died now. Where he went on. He was a teacher, and he talked about dance. Have you ever seen this guy?
No.
Do you remember this guy?
I think you've shown me.
Yeah, it's the most amazing TED talk. You should watch it after we've done this, right? And he says, like, some kids want to dance. We should teach them to dance. We're going to need dancers. He said, look how much the world has changed in the last 10 years. It's going to change so much in the next 10 years. And we're teaching kids to remember facts. You know, he was right then. And I swear it was about 10 years ago, this TED talk. It's even worse now. At best, just say, look, do what you want to do. Just do sports or dance or play with computers. But why are we teaching? The maths she does now, I don't use any of that in my life, and I need to use less now. English. There's so many different skills they don't need anymore. But the kid that comes out who's been fucking around with AI for 5-6 years or playing with computers or has some other kind of decent skill will be set up. Most of them are going to go into... I mean, what's going to happen to all these university courses, accountancy practices, when you can count your accounting done by AI?
I love it.
Yeah, I love it, but it's
disrupt away.
So it might completely disrupt universities. There's no point going to learn this because there's no job at the end of this for me.
So much of universities are not about learning. Like this is what you learn on the inside of these institutions, is that teaching and learning is a very small part of the institution.
What is it then?
Well, take the big institutions, they have endowments. They're basically hedge funds that get tax breaks because they are educational, right? But take something with like a $30 billion endowment, like that's an educational institution. They've only got a few thousand students. Come on. No, but they're also big grant machines. They're taking in grants from the government or from private sources, producing research. It's sometimes in collaboration with industry, right? So all that stuff just cranks away. So many people in the academy are not teaching anyone. And then you realize tuition doesn't really pay the bills for most major institutions. That's not what's funding them. So they're hedge funds. They're invested in Bitcoin, like Harvard and Yale are in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Like they're going to survive. They're going to continue providing an education that certifies people as the cool people. A lot of what education does is just it's admissions. If you get in, you match some profile of appropriate person for leadership and jobs,
and
right?
management.
So what people are, the degree is really just certification of your admission, and maybe that system will also collapse, but it's still very powerful, right? Just the branding. You're just like, okay, you're Ivy League or whatever, and that means like you're a safe bet, and a lot of that is just has nothing to do with them actually learning anything. So you can go through all this busy work in 4 years that doesn't really matter for your prospects, but it shows that you show up, turn papers in, and most of all, you got accepted by that place.
Comply.
Right? Yeah. If you think of this as all wasteful from an economic perspective, like if that just went away, like would anybody be worse off? Like you would just have to do a little more work at HR in recruitment. You'd have to do a little more research yourself and do a better job interviewing, right? So it's just two societies, one of which kind of carries this whole baggage and one of which just has a little bit more beefed up front office of their corporations. That one's going to do better in the long run if it's just bullshit, but it'll still carry on for a long time because of the endowments.
Burn it down. Burn it all down.
I'm not really defending it, am I? I'm just kind of piling on.
It creates an additional class of people, I think, that is designed to maintain the status quo, even I think across society. And there's been, people who have studied this, and it's called the professional-managerial class. And and there was this really great physicist who wrote about it, and I can't remember his name, unfortunately, but it's just like this idea that you go through the academic system and you get through graduate school, you become a professor or whatever, and you're part of the system in a sense that because your training is basically not to make waves, not to challenge things, you're you're going to be one of those people that's going to ensure that society doesn't change.
I mean, Karl Marx had names for the two groups of people. And
it's the same thing holds true at like Goldman. You have to kiss the ring of the people in upper management, and it's true of any large organization. Right? It's how tenure is the big breaking point. Well, there are many. You have to get a job. In order to get a job, you have to please your advisor. Your advisor writes a letter for you that's very important for you to get interviews.
And that's the only person who can say whether you can graduate or not.
Yeah.
Literally, if they are not happy with you, they will keep you forever until you give up.
Fuck them, get out of this. You're already a superstar. We already love you. Everybody loves you in Bitcoin pretty much.
Yeah.
It's apart from the ones who are reticent to agree into some ideas. But like, what just seems like this is a sunk cost and this is a waste of time. I think you could go and write the exact same thesis, and it just means you won't get some letters after your name, but it's still out there, it's still useful to everyone. And I think you just get on with it, and we'll give you the money to get on with it, and we will support you to do that. Like, just do what you want to do. I mean, I'm a terrible advisor, by the way. Yeah.
She's going to blame you in a later podcast.
I will.
Blame me in a later podcast, but we would support everything you want to do, emotionally, financially, however much you need, but just fuck this shit.
Yeah, it's torture.
All right, I'm calling this because we're going to do another one tonight. Troy, listen, love you both. Great to see you. This was awesome. I didn't even look at my notes once. Great conversation. Done.